guys. Welcome to the Multiply Podcast. We are joined in studio today by Pastor Lance Colkmire. Pastor Lance, welcome.
Thank you. I'm privileged to be here.
I'm so glad to be together with you. I've heard, we've met a couple of times.
Yes.
I don't know if you recall, once we bumped into each other in Bradley Square Mall.
Okay.
But on several different things at the GA, we've met before.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard a lot more about you than our experiences together. Peter Boros and Dominika Boros, dear friends of mine, have told me all about you and the ministry that you do with children's ministry. So for me, it's an absolute joy to be able to have you in the studio. Really, it is.
Thank you.
We give Maria actually a hard time. This is a true story. She's going to listen to this, by the way, and she's going to text me about this part specifically. But we were hanging out once right after we had moved here, and maybe within the first year or so. And I had asked her, how Royal Family Kids Camp was and so on. And she goes, Pastor Lance, he is my favorite pastor. And I remember one of the other people in the room, they're like, wow, so Eddie's just chopped liver. And so we give her the hardest time about it.
I understand.
And all the time, like even after I had scheduled you, I texted her. I was like, hey, I'm recording with your favorite pastor. And she's like, wow.
That's great.
So we have a good time. But let me introduce you a little bit to our listeners.
Sure.
So you have an amazing heart for children's ministry, is what I've come to know about you. You're a graduate of Lee University and of Pentecostal Theological Seminary. That's my alma mater as well. I went there and did my graduate degree during COVID from California. So that was a journey.
That is
right. But I couldn't walk the stage. I graduated the year that you couldn't walk the stage.
Wow.
So,
But you have the sheepskin. You've got the diploma.
It's done.
You've got it.
So. And the sheepskin, that's funny. I've never heard it called that, but makes sense. And then you're a missions pastor at South Cleveland Church of God.
Correct.
Right? Pastor Edwin Lipsey, great pastor, awesome man. Managing editor at the Church of God Publications. You invest in children's ministry in other countries. You serve in Africa.
Correct.
And then you're also, you do amazing work with Royal Family Kids Camp, 28 years now.
Yep.
Yeah, that's tremendous. So I remember years and years ago, when, I was much younger, obviously, but I was trying to figure out exactly what ministry I would do.
Sure.
And as everybody does, Lord, what did you make me for? What did you call me to serve in? And I understand there's callings that kind of come and go in seasons too. But I remember testing out all of the different fields as one does, dip my toes in the water here and there and kind of test everything out. And I remember testing out children's ministry and thinking to myself, maybe, And I had served in children's ministry for like a couple of Sundays, and I just knew this is not my cup of tea.
Sure.
At least not in that season of my life. And I always had a lot of respect for people that are in children's ministry because oftentimes it's like herding cats, And I wanted to ask you, of all the different places, what drew you to children's ministry?
I grew up as a teenager, we lived in a small community called Dade City, Florida.
Oh, wow.
And we had a church of about that time, about 120 or so folks. Very, very strong church in this little community. And our pastor's wife and another key person in the church just had a real burden for children's ministry. They just asked me one Sunday, said, "Hey, Lance, I was 16 years old. Why don't you come down, see what in the basement?" Back then it was a church basement where they had children's church. "Come down, check us out, and why don't you tell this Bible story?" And I've never done anything like that in my life. And I said, sure, I'll be glad to do it.
What age range?
It was elementary age.
Oh, okay.
So I did it. I cannot remember what story I told. All I know is they told me I did a good job. Whether I did or not, I don't know. But they said that I did. And that was the starting point, was that.
Wow.
And enjoy it. I think what it was, I felt some acceptance from the kids, that there was a little bit of a connection there. And so from there, this was back in the early days of Sesame Street.
Right.
Sesame Productions. So there were these Sesame Street puppets. You could get Ernie, you could get Cookie Monster, the Grouch, etc. So me and some buddies at church, we had, why not if we're going to do it, let's do some puppet ministry. So we had a guy build a stage for us. He's a very creative guy in our youth group. Started doing puppet ministry regularly as part of it, and so it just grew from there. But it all just started in a local church, being asked to volunteer.
I love that you're telling the origin, because how does that saying go? Don't discount small beginnings.
Sure.
I think it's so important that, we're talking about children's ministry and, starting out at 16.
Yeah,
There are so many young people that are 16 that, might feel to themselves, well, I'm not the right person for the job.
sure.
I
Hmm.
don't have the education. I don't have I'm too young. What do I
Hmm.
know? But it's such a good, compelling model for discipleship because to a child, a 16-year-old, I mean, you're the cool kid.
Oh, yeah. Hmm.
You're the one that has a very direct influence over their
Hmm.
lives.
Yeah, it's true.
No, I think that's tremendous, and how awesome to see you answer the call. The Sesame Street and puppet ministry. That's great. How did it
Yeah.
go over with the kids? I assume they were.
Oh, yeah, we loved it. They loved it. So what happened is we then had our pastor had a real vision to reach our community. And we were in a migrant community. So in the wintertime, population grew because the orange groves, particularly being there. A lot of Mexican
Wow.
migrants would come in. And so they wanted to start a bus ministry, which was a pretty popular type ministry back then. And so we did. We got a bus. And so they sent me.
What is a bus ministry? Sorry, this is foreign
Sure,
to me.
that's fine. It's you get an old school bus typically, and then you get some training as how to do home to home visitation. Do it on Saturday. Then on Sunday mornings you go and you pick up children and bring them to church.
So on Saturday, you would just visit people's homes in the community.
Yeah, so we designated a certain area that I was going to be responsible for. I was 18, I think, at this time, 17 or 18. And so we had a Saturday announced. This is going to be the start of our bus ministry visitation. They sent me to a training, a couple of day training on how to do this, how to do visitation, how not to do. So the first Saturday came, and showing up was myself and my pastor. That was it, just us two. He had a little Volkswagen Bug. We got in the Bug. And he said, okay, we're going to start going down this street. And this is a poor community. And so you're looking for homes that maybe have indications children are there. You got some toys in the yard, whatever. And you go knock on the home, tell them about your church, invite them, we're going to have a bus tomorrow, et cetera, et cetera. So we did that visitation. Did the first house. I get out of the car, and the pastor's sitting in the car. I looked at him. He said, I'm not doing this every Saturday. You are, so you go. I'll wait for you in the car.
Ah,
And so that's how we started. So we went home to home, visited a lot of homes. Next, had a bus driver the next day. Went to pick up kids. We had a 66 passenger bus. We picked up 2 children.
oh
Picked
wow.
up 2.
So Saturday, the whole visit was you knocking on a door, letting them know that you're coming as representing the church. You
Yep.
have a children's program Sunday morning.
Yep.
If they would be open to you guys picking up their kid
Sure.
the very next
Sure.
morning.
Yeah. That was it.
Wow.
Good news was about the next Sunday, next weekend, we had some other people volunteering. Soon had a second bus. And so it grew and grew and grew and grew. And so until I worked in it for 2.5 years till I came as a junior to Lee. And at that point, we had 3 buses, and we would have anywhere from 100, 125, maybe 150 kids coming to church on a Sunday. It was
Wow.
it was a phenomenal way to get involved in ministry, and it was cross-cultural because most of my route had to do with Mexican migrant children.
Yeah.
And so
What
it
a
was,
tremendous idea.
yeah, and what a great way to young person to get involved in ministry.
Yeah. No, it's so important to not despise getting involved at a young and an early age. I got saved at 16, and I was in ministry. I feel like from day one, but
Yeah,
by the time I was 17, I'd already joined the youth ministry board, and I
okay,
was serving in that capacity. And it's funny because at the time I thought to myself, I'm not making it. This isn't a big deal. You know
yeah,
what I mean? Like,
hmm
you have like dreams and aspirations
hmm
of like, I want to do, more for the Lord, but I'm just young and little. But man, cutting your teeth in those early years sure served me for my later
yeah,
years.
yeah,
You know?
absolutely, absolutely. And what it does to you too, it causes you to make some decisions as a young person because you have all the temptations every other young person has.
Right.
So is this legit? Is this Christianity thing real? And you realize you're held to a higher accountability
Yep.
than other kids your age.
Yeah.
And so it kind of forces you into some decisions, into some maturity that otherwise you may not be ready to accomplish.
No, that's completely true. Yeah. The
Yeah.
accountability. I remember thinking to myself, the guys are making these jokes. I can't joke that way
Yeah.
because I got to serve tomorrow.
Sure, exactly.
You know.
Same thing.
Yeah. No,
Same thing.
that's so wild.
But having a pastor who was a mentor in that area, in that arena, and loved young people and wanted to see us do ministry, that was incredibly important. He and his wife were just mentors to us and wanted to get us launched in ministry, and we did, and he did.
How would you describe a pastor who's a mentor?
Someone who can relate to the person he's trying to minister to, and openness, not feeling threatened, what he's doing, but someone who looks forward to the future, because that's the whole purpose. You're
Right.
saying, okay, I can't do this forever. I want to raise up people who can follow in my footsteps. And just honest and real. They'll pray with you, open their home to you, talk with you, listen to you. All those things are what I recall as being strong mentorship.
Yeah. No, the open, honest, transparent, open their home, walk alongside you. Those are some really key components that, and I don't know how it is in the, in the Florida community or in the American community, but in the Romanian community, those are very special things.
Mm-hmm.
Those are special things that are not as common as I wish they were, to be perfectly honest, But how wonderful. Just the necessity for it and then seeing it actually develop.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Was there a catalyst moment that launched you into children's ministry, or like you might have started out in children's ministry, then you came to Lee, but even here at Lee, did you know that you wanted to do children's ministry?
When I came to Lee, again, I came as a junior.
Mm-hmm.
And so because of my work there with one thing I did as a job, so I was going to junior college at home, and then I got a job at an elementary school doing tutoring of Mexican migrant children, learning basic English skills.
Wow.
So when I came to Lee, I really thought that maybe I would go into the mission field, into a Spanish-speaking community. So that was part of my thinking, because I'd become, I wouldn't say fluent, but conversational in Spanish because of the work that I was doing and the education that I was getting there. So I thought I might wind up in Latin America, something like that. But but some capacity, yes, teaching or somehow would be involved in children's mission, somehow probably cross-cultural. So yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then so you knew that coming to Lee, and I guess my curiosity is was there a moment where you knew, like, okay, I'm going to be in kids ministry for the rest of my life, or was there just a natural trajectory and it just kind of developed naturally in that way?
I think it was a little bit of both. I felt it would always be part of what I would do, and then just step by step, doors opened, and that continued to happen. Yeah, and then I was a English major, education major. I did student teaching and realized in student teaching, I don't want to be a public school teacher. I realized that wasn't going to be my calling. So I got involved in doing a lot of writing, but yet on Sundays, weekends, doing basically volunteer ministry in local church. Those two things go together. And what happened over the years, I've done a lot of writing for children's ministry, a lot of curriculum related to that, various books, et cetera, curriculum and so on. So it's been hand in glove along the way. Yeah, where my writing has combined with the hands-on ministry.
So it's funny because whenever I feel like in my own life, whenever I see that, I have some sort of an affinity, a talent, a skill, a something, that really fits into a specific area, it's so easy to look at that and go, oh, well, I'm going to write books, or I'm going to,
Sure.
But whenever for me at least, whenever I start to put everything together, it's like, oh, okay, you want me to write, but for this category. Got it. Or discipleship, but for this specific niche. Yeah. And it's neat because I feel like whenever you're walking and calling, the things that didn't make sense just make sense all of a sudden.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. It's a process. It's a process. Yeah. Something. So yeah, did it play out like I thought it would? Yes and no. Yes and in many ways not. But yet the ultimate calling was still there.
That's such a good answer. Did it play out like I thought it would? Yes and no.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly how it feels for me as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. How did you end up doing ministry in Africa? How did that come about?
It's a really interesting story because back we had where I'm at South Cleveland Church of God, we're in 26 now, so this was back in 2012, I believe. No, 2010. Let's take it back there. So we had a revival meeting at our church. And one night, you may know who Kevin Wallace is.
I do.
Sure, right? So Kevin was speaking at our church. And I knew his wife, Devin, a little more than I knew Kevin because I'd done a little bit of teaching at Lee. She'd been in a class I had at Lee, a kids ministry class. But anyway, one night, I was just at the altar to myself, just praying and seeking God. And he came over to me, and he said to me, God has a ministry for you that's going to touch multitudes. And I felt it was a word from the Lord, but I had no idea what it could be. So a year goes by, 2 years go by, not knowing what it was. In the meantime, there's a lady named Juanita Brownlow who was a a missionary to children in Africa who I met in the intervening time. She had come home from, she was living in Zambia. She had come home for the General Assembly to have a break, do some fundraising. And while she was here in Orlando, she suddenly died, totally unexpectedly.
Oh.
And so I had begun, so I had on my, I've still got it today. So in my prayer list, electronic on my laptop and my phone, I had listed children's ministry in Africa. I was just talking about, that was pretty general, but that was always praying for that. And so it comes, we're now at the General Assembly, in 2014 now, I think, after the General Assembly, I'm meeting with a guy named Randy Paris who was doing youth ministry, doing some youth ministry training in Africa. We were just talking one day.
I know Randy.
Okay, you know Randy.
Yeah, he served in youth and discipleship for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I knew him because him and Tony Lane and I and everybody else worked together.
That's
yeah.
right. And so
great guy, by the way.
Oh, yeah, tremendous guy. And so he was talking about, I'm going to be going to Rwanda in November doing youth. Why don't you come with me and do some kids ministry training? And that moment, I knew what that word was.
Wow.
I knew it all made sense. And so by God's grace, then I've made 14 trips since then. And we got 2 scheduled for this 2026. So other than COVID, I've been going twice a year to different countries, just doing core children's ministry training in various places.
Amazing. How, I mean, there's so many things I want to ask you about. How did you spend the time between receiving that word and seeing the fulfillment of the word? Because a lot of times that waiting period between the two is rough.
Yeah. Well, I'm busy doing what I do, working, I'm family, doing the camp ministry, et cetera.
Right.
So it's not just more of in the back of my mind. Just what is it? It isn't like I'm sitting around doing nothing.
Right.
So I'm still doing what I know to do, but still just curious.
Yeah.
Wondering when and what could this be? And I guess thinking that I'll know when I know.
Yeah.
It turned out that I did, but I had no idea what it was going to be. Yeah.
I love that when the opportunity came, it transported you back to the beginning of that conversation.
Yeah. And here was something interesting that happened too. So now, you mentioned Tony Lane. So I've done some ministry traveling with Tony, some missions ministry to Asia and to Europe, several trips. But the National Children's Ministry Conference, the Focus Conference, several years ago when Tony was still alive, I was there, and Tony called me up, and he always liked to honor and recognize people. That was part of his gifting.
Yeah.
He called me forward, had no idea, and he gave me this award. I've got it hanging in my office, and it's a plaque. It's the Juanita Brownlow Award, and that's the lady in Africa. Passed away, and so he had started giving someone involved in ministry of children overseas this award. And so I'm not sure he even knew the whole story of how I got involved. But to get that with her name on it,
right,
it was just pretty amazing.
Is it, and forgive me if I'm, not maybe overly eager, but is kind of the thought process like the work that she was doing, the mantle was passed on?
In some degree, yeah, I think
in some way,
because the people, when I go to places, some places I've been, she has been before doing training.
Wow.
And so the respect and the love that people have. Now, she was living there. Her that was her life.
Wow.
She was living in Africa, so I'm nowhere near who and what she was. But still the respect there. And so I remember the first time I went with Brother Nadashi, one of the superintendents there, that he said, he went through the training with me, and he said, well, your training was very good. I thought it would be the same as Sister Juanita's. It was totally different. But hers was wonderful, and yours was more of a compliment.
Good.
And I had seen some of what she did, and I saw where she focused, and what I focused was differently. So yeah,
that's
pretty amazing.
Really special. Yeah,
it really is special.
Continue to build on the work of others before.
Yeah.
When I travel and I'll meet with youth leaders, I used to for a long time, and I still mentor a lot of them all over the nation. And one of the things that I try and I help them understand, because I think that one of the mistakes that people make, especially in the younger generation, is they think that because now is my first time in ministry, that
Mm-hmm.
now is also the first time that this ministry is happening.
Oh, okay.
You know,
Gotcha.
and to just understand that, you're not the only one that God's speaking to, and now is
Right.
not the only time that God spoke. You know,
That's right.
like you're building on the work of what God's been doing through other people before you.
Yes.
And then,
so important.
when you leave, God's going to continue the work through another vessel.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's really a beautiful testimony seeing the work continue to be built upon.
Yeah.
Yeah, and watch it get spread. No, that's beautiful. I wanted to ask. I was curious. Are there differences, because you do a lot of children's ministry here in the States? You do children's ministry in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Are there differences that you see between the children? Having been raised here in the United States, or been raised in a third world, or with a third world culture, or are kids just kids? Is there a lot of similarity? I was always curious about that.
Yeah. Ultimately, I would say our children, their needs are the same. To some degree, their interests are the same. Opportunities, very different.
Right.
So that would be one that stands out. So many times the living conditions, are very different. The positive side for people living in developing countries is that there are not the distractions that children have here in the U.S. It's enjoyable to go to a community in Africa and you see children playing outside, first of all, playing with ropes, playing with tires, playing with soccer balls, sometimes soccer balls that have been made, homemade,
Nice.
but hours on end.
Right.
And so seeing that I miss that here, that, that creativity child sometimes gets squashed here. So there are advantages.
Sure.
Despite the disadvantages. So I think environment obviously is huge difference, but ultimately kids are kids, same basic needs. Yeah.
Yeah. When I was in the Republic of Moldova with this great organization called Charity Cub, I remember spending time with the kids, and one of the things that stood out to me was how mature they had to be.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Like it was. There's a difference when somebody is mature because they were matured through like discipling.
Yes.
And versus like a maturing because I had to mature.
Right.
And that's something that always remained with me. And
Yes.
I don't even know how to describe it, but I just feel like when you look into their eyes, you can see, the experiences that they had, to some degree, the mark that it made on them. And there's pros and cons to it, to the maturing.
Yes.
If you can deal with the trauma and you can work through it, then there's a great catalyst for transformation and change and all of that. And I get that. My mother was born and raised in Romania, but she had spent almost 3 years being raised in an orphanage. And so orphanages have a very special place in my heart, especially in Eastern Europe. Because it's part of my mom's story and part of our story. But I always wondered. I've never spent time in Africa. I've never been to Africa. I always wanted to go, and I was always curious, about the third world or the second world, or however you want to call it, the Republic of Moldova, compared to like experiences of children in Africa. So I appreciate the insight.
Yeah.
Yeah. I something that I did notice is, whenever you take kids out of their scenarios and you bring them here, they become like kids here. Like they assimilate so quickly,
Right. Yeah.
for better or worse. They get
Yes.
stuck in screens and everything else. And, I get that, but no, they're very malleable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are. And so because they're better able, I think, many times to focus for longer periods of time, just because they don't have all the distractions. On the negative
Right.
side, many times their education is lacking. Many of these place schools sometimes are subpar, and sometimes so that handicaps them. So it's pro and con.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Where in Africa specifically?
I've been to several places. So I have mostly been in Eastern Africa. So Zambia, Zimbabwe, Malawi. I've been to Western Africa, to Togo, and to training French-speaking Africa there. Rwanda.
Was Rwanda different than the rest?
Rwanda is different because of the history, because of the what happened in the 80s and 90s,
The genocide.
that happened there. So there's an undercurrent there. There's a tension
Interesting.
in Rwanda still there with that. And and the government kind of plays on that, uses that to help. Well, if this could happen again, if blah, 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 blah. And so what's happening now in Rwanda, a real tragedy for all churches is very few churches are allowed to even be open right now. So the government has gone in. They've done this twice. It happened once on the second trip I went to Rwanda. The government had said, okay, churches must reach certain criteria of their buildings. They have to have this type of roof, these type of walls, this type of parking, etc., which is totally what African churches are not.
Right.
The vast majority of them. And if you don't do this, you have this much time to do it, then we're going to close you down. And so there was a little bit of grace given there, but I had a trip there. I was in rural Rwanda doing training, and I was told that perhaps the government will come while you are there and do an investigation, inspection. If they do, just talk with them, with the pastor, and answer any questions. Okay. Sure enough, about the third day of 4 days of training, a big vehicle rolls up. You've got people dressed in military uniforms. You got people dressed in business attire, and they're walking all over this facility. And the facility was huge, but very, very crude. Tin roof, clay floor, and they walk all around. And they call the pastor in to talk with her, as a female pastor. And I come in because I was told to do that, but they didn't want me there very long, and they sent me away. They talked a long time. But they allowed the pastor for us to finish the training. We had one more day. You can finish it. You can have church one more Sunday, and then you're closed. It so happened, you'll like this part of the story, it so happened that Minimum of Action were coming to that location in Rwanda to work on that facility that was in their plan. And so not long after that.
In Rwanda. They built a steel post and beam roof.
Yeah.
Well, I never knew this story, but I designed that roof.
Oh, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, tremendous place. And so, and the timing for that was just a godsend. And so that all happened. Well, so now what's happened? The government came back in a few months ago. So churches have been functioning and have come in very strictly, and they've just totally shut down unless you have all these things we demanded of you, and unless your pastors have some type of training, you can't pastor. So in the Church of God now we have 2 churches open, just 2 out of 20. So we've got guys who are, in fact, our church is helping a couple of guys get education. We got some guys training at our Bible school in Lusaka right now, and they're working hard to get certain churches up to a certain level so they can get open back up. But it's not, again, it's all evangelical churches.
Wow.
And safety is not the motivation. That's not the motivation.
No,
that's not it.
Politics and control.
It's politics and control. So
yeah.
So it's a different world.
Yeah.
So yes, Rwanda's a different place.
Yeah. No, that's why I never knew really much more about that roof system.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah, that's so funny because when we originally were working on it, because Peter was also a part of Men and Women of Action, that he was part of that specific team that went out there to build that. And I remember I had worked with a structural engineer in California, and my family's steel fabricators.
Okay.
That's what all my brothers do. My dad's a steel fabricator. My grandfather was a blacksmith. And so what ended up happening was I designed that entire structure, gave Peter these blueprints. He flew out there, and Peter calls me and he goes, "Hey, man, none of this material exists here." So I remember, telling him, I was like, "All right, go to the material facility, whatever you have, and take pictures of everything, and I'll design a system based on what you have." So he sent it to me. We scrapped everything, started from the beginning. Met with a structural engineer, and the structural engineer was looking at everything. He wasn't sure about like the ASTM rating of the steel and so on. And he deferred to my dad, and he goes, "Alex, if you say it's good, it's good." And so my dad looked at it and he goes, "All right, modify this, change that." And we changed it all around, sent it. And then Peter just, out of whatever materials they had, them and the entire team out there built that whole thing. But I didn't know that part of the story.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wild. And then in Lusaka, World Missions recently did a medical clinic.
Okay, yeah, I've heard about that.
Yeah,
I did.
yeah. That was one of my projects as well. So
Oh,
I designed that, and then Peter
phenomenal.
went out there and built it.
Wow.
Yeah. So Pete and I, we tag team together on a lot of projects.
Yeah.
So we have a good time.
That is great. And in Africa, basically what I'm going and doing is most of our churches there, children's ministry, well, everything is called Sunday school. That's the term. It's Sunday school. And it's basically primarily what happens on Sunday morning. And most of our teachers, they don't have a training, don't have really an understanding of children's ministry. Now, some do. Some are fantastic. But some just haven't had the opportunity.
Sure.
It's basically how do you tell a Bible story to children? How do you use objects to children? And helping them understand that you don't need this things they think they need. I say, look, if you got 4 things you need to teach children. You need a Bible. You need children. You got plenty of children in Africa. That's not a problem. You need a teacher. You need the Holy Spirit. So if you got those 4 core ingredients, you can do it. Now let's look at some practical things you can do to make it work. Using objects that are available there. How Jesus told Bible stories, how Jesus used objects. Just those core things we teach and practice and work through. And of course, you got a lot of vibrancy in the African church anyway, so there's no trouble with them using their creativity to do so. But some they don't, hasn't been channeled that way. They haven't been taught. Oh, you can play games with children. You can creatively tell stories with children. Now, that's why I've been shocked that most didn't know that you could even do those things.
Wow.
And it's not hard, but just release what's there. Yeah.
There's this common, and I don't know if it's a cultural thing or not, but there's this common kind of thought process in the Romanian community that, at least I grew up with it my whole life, that the holier you are, the more serious you are.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, and I don't know if it's the same in Africa, but you know, the better teachers or the better pastors, they were the more serious pastors.
Okay.
You know, even children's pastors, even children's school teachers or Sunday school teachers, and don't get me wrong, there has to be a fear and a reverence, and the last thing we would ever want to be is insolent with the gospel. But I find that since I've lived here, that there is a disconnect sometimes where it's like, well, if you're serious, then that automatically implies righteousness or spirituality, and that's just not the reality of it at all.
No.
Yeah. Did you find something similar with your time in Africa or no?
Well, there's a lot of joy. That's one of the amazing things. A lot of joy
In Africa?
Yeah. So the worship is very expressive. So it'd be very different than a Romanian church, and it's very expressive. We're going to dance. We're going to sing. We're going to do all these things. But sometimes that hasn't always translated to the younger ages. That's what I found.
That's interesting.
To me, it's almost would be a given, and I found it really.
Because the adults are very. I mean, I've seen videos. They're very animated.
Oh yeah.
You would assume that the children are going to be twice.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
So I've found that now they will teach children, get involved, children's choirs, that type of thing, and children teach them to dance. So that aspect of it yet, but when it comes to now teaching children, it's been very much a school model. You sit down, you listen while the teacher talks.
Interesting.
That's been about all that it has been.
Wow, how very interesting.
Yeah.
You had mentioned one of the things that you teach the local Sunday school teachers is how to teach a lesson to like an elementary school student. What are the key components of that?
Yeah, key is really understanding first that children learn in different ways.
Okay.
Some children learn best. There are those few children that do learn the best by hearing. But sometimes it's only children that are being reached because that's the only method that we use. But understand that many children learn best by seeing. That's usually the majority. Other children learn best by doing. And there are more specifics, but those are the 3 general ways. So you need, in teaching to be effective, to combine those 3: movement, action, visuals, and then the teaching and the talking.
Yeah.
So that's begin there.
Seeing, so hearing, seeing, and doing.
Hearing, seeing, and doing. Yeah.
What kind of a student were you?
I'm a visual learner.
Really?
Yeah, I'm visual. Yeah, I remember best by what I see. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I tend to teach that way.
Yeah, that makes
Because
sense. Yeah.
you teach and what you like to, what you learn. Yeah.
That's interesting.
You're
Yeah.
probably hands-on because
I'm a doer.
You're a doer.
Yeah.
That's where you learn best. Yeah.
Yeah, I need to be involved in doing something or else I get bored.
Yeah.
Yeah, Pete's the same way. We have to do something.
Yeah. I can see that. So many times what happens too is we categorize people like you when they're children. Oh, they're not as smart as this one over here who can sit and listen. Well, no, they're just a different smart. To understand it, it's not less intelligent. It's just different ways God has made different people. So just because it's easy, you wish all the children would just sit down and listen to you quietly.
Right.
Well, no, that's not the way God's made all the children. So we have to find out who they are and how they learn and approach and adjust our teaching to reach the children.
I'm going to send this to my elementary school teachers. Just this clip right here. I'm just going to forward it to them. Yeah. No, because I know that I was very much a doer and hands-on.
Sure.
And incredibly stubborn as a child. So the combination of those two did not
play well in Sunday school.
No, sir.
No, I understand that.
No, that's really cool. Yeah, ministry in Africa with children there. That's a brilliant ministry. I think it's fantastic. Yeah, that's going to be the kind of thing that easily changes a person's life. I mean, I know how much the impact of education is here in the States. I can't imagine the impact of education in a third world country or Zambia or something like that.
Yeah. So I was supposed to be going to Mozambique in March.
Oh, wow.
They're having terrible, terrible flooding right now.
Oh.
Horrendous flooding in southern. So I've been to Maputo, the capital, and I was supposed to be going to a city that's a little further north this time, but we're having to postpone that probably maybe till September or something because the flooding is horrendous. So there's the overseer there named Felix Bonds. We were communicating last week. And so my last trip there, about 2 or 3 years ago, we went to a little orphanage outside Maputo. And when they say an orphanage, we got there at night. It was a block building, very dark. They had no electricity in the building. We went inside, and there were candles. There were some ladies with candles. The floor is filled with children. We met the man who has overseen this ministry for years. He's on a cane. He's an elderly man. Not all the children were true orphans. Some were, single parent, but all poor and all. They're taking care. They didn't sleep right there in that little building necessarily.
So they would go home.
Yeah, go home.
Yeah,
wherever home was, whatever that looked like.
Yeah.
But what I was told is that whole place is gone. It's all wiped out with these floods.
Wow.
And I think the children, they got them all out, but that whole community's gone.
Wow.
And so it's a devastating. And so those type of things sometimes will happen. That flooding happens here and it's devastating. But when you go to a country like that, I mean, it sets you back for months and maybe years on end. So yeah. So,
wow, and that's happening right now
in Mozambique.
In Mozambique.
Yep.
Well, that is wild. Regrettable.
Yes.
Regrettable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I've heard many stories over the years from Peter and from Dominica and also from Maria and Felicia about Royal Family Kids Camp. And I wanted to ask you about that because that's really where my interest in, children's ministry and the work that you do, really, really peaked, especially from, hearing stories from Peter and Dominica and the impact that happens because, I had done work with, orphanages and so on in the Republic of Moldova. And I know that I'd worked with Pete on different projects and stuff in Africa as well. But I feel like, living in America, I've had multiple people ask me, are there still orphanages in America? And I know I'm working with the Smoky Mountain Children's Home, but
right.
I guess I just never expected there to be, poverty or kids camps for children that are either, true orphans or partial. I don't know what the terminology is.
Sure.
And so when I heard about Royal Family Kids Camp, especially like, out here in the Appalachia Mountains and all of that,
sure.
It just blew my mind. I couldn't believe that was in America, and so a lot of that is, my ignorance. I just didn't know. And I wanted to ask you about it. Royal Family Kids Camp, 28 years. For our listeners, tell them, what is Royal Family Kids Camp?
Okay. Royal Family Kids Camp is a camp for children who are in the foster care system primarily, also for kids who've been adopted out of the foster care system, or sometimes kids who are in a kinship place where they've been removed from the home, maybe live with a grandmother, an aunt, or an uncle, but children who have been abused, abandoned, or neglected, and taken out of their home for one of those reasons. So that's the essence of it. And Royal Family is a 5-day summer camp for ages 7 through 11, and originated in California, in Southern California,
Really?
Orange County. Yeah. And the Assembly of God Church started this ministry back in the 80s, 40 years ago, in 1985.
Wow.
And again, that was the origin. So today, there are about 200 of these camps nationwide and interdenominational in ministry. So yeah, that's the root story of it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how does a kid end up in foster care typically?
Okay, it's there's been someone, often it's a school teacher, maybe sees signs of abuse, abandonment, neglect. Sometimes maybe it's a relative, maybe it's a neighbor, but a call gets made to social services. Investigation is done, and then the child is taken out of the home because of the situation they're found in. The main reason, most common, is neglect. And neglect, oftentimes, it's because of alcohol or drug abuse by parents. So
Gotcha.
that's the most common reason. Sometimes it's physical abuse. Sometimes it's sexual abuse, but most common is neglect.
Wow. And so these children end up in the foster care system, and then there's foster parents that take them in?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
And a real crisis that's existed for a long time and still exists is just not enough foster homes.
Okay. See, I know nothing about the foster care system.
Yeah. So here in Bradley County, I don't have stats with me, but I know I'm part of a coalition that we meet monthly, and we get updates on this. And generally speaking, there are about, on an average month, you've got twice as many children needing to be in foster care than there are homes available for them. So what tends to happen is then some homes have more children in them than there should be. Sometimes children, for a time, have to stay in at a temporary shelter till a home is available. So it's just a critical need to have more foster parents.
Temporary shelter, how long is that time period?
It can really vary. So we have some places that have developed here. Trying to think of the name, and it's not coming to me right now.
Is this the same as like an Isaiah 117 house?
Exactly what I'm talking. Yes.
Okay.
Isaiah House. Same thing. That's what Isaiah House is. So it maybe a day, maybe 2, maybe 3 days, sometimes a week.
Gotcha.
Ideally it's just a very short time, but sometimes it does get extended. There have been occasions where there's no place to take the child, so they're at the DCS offices, but Isaiah House is there to help that not to happen. Type of ministry.
So for our listeners, the DCS is the Department of Child Services, and then the Isaiah 117 ministry. I've just gone on a rabbit trail learning all about the Isaiah 117 ministry, and it's such a great ministry.
Oh, fabulous.
So what ended up happening was a lady and her husband, her name is Rhonda. They went and became a foster family. And while they were in the Department of Child Services offices, they were sitting there having a conversation with the representative from DCS, and he was explaining to them the process. And somewhere in that explanation, he said that a child gets taken out of a home due to neglect or abuse or something like that. And they come into the DCS office, and they'll be there, sometimes for a couple of days. And I was just listening to Rhonda's testimony. That's why this is fresh on my mind right now. And she was just saying, she goes, I raised my hand and I said, sorry, I'm ignorant about all of this.
Sure.
She goes, you don't mean here, like in this room? And the man said, a little girl slept on the floor right there last night.
Sure.
Because they're not built necessarily to house kids, but what are you going to do? They have to go somewhere. And so it's just this cold, kind of dank federal building, cubicles and so on. And that's when the Lord had spoken into her heart just from watching her testimony. And they decided to, kind of spread the news, and then money got put together, and they built a home where there's volunteers that children, whenever they get taken out of custody of their parents and before they get placed into a foster care system, they'll be there for several days, and they actually come into like a warm, loving, friendly place rather than some big, scary federal building. My wife's a registered nurse, and in Sacramento, specifically, when she was doing her clinicals, she had to do her clinical rotations through Department of Child Services, through DCS. And man, she would come home crying every day. Like it's just rough situations. And I remember, telling her I want to be here for you, but part of me would think, man, you got to stop telling me these stories. I mean, I still think about, those kids, and I pray about them, and I hope that their situation, has turned around, but rough, difficult stuff. But yeah, Isaiah 117, amazing ministry. Actually, I did a deep dive on them because I'm going to reach out to them soon. I really want to interview them as well, and
fantastic. Yeah.
have them share their story. And now they've spread all over the U.S. Just
Yes.
what a tremendous ministry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. One of the fears that people have about maybe foster care or coming alongside of these kids is, they might be here temporarily, and then it's like, well, I don't know how the story's going to end, or I don't know if I'll be able to have them long term or something like that. So I'd rather just not get involved at all.
Sure.
And that's such a bad mentality. One of the things that I heard Rhonda say in the testimonial video on their website was, she said, that might be true, but that child needs a mom and a dad today.
Right.
And for today, if that's all you can do, then that's okay. But they need somebody today. And I just, man, it so moved me. I was just sitting there watching this video, crying about it.
Yeah.
But it's tremendous work. So the foster care system, because I know a lot of people are ignorant about it.
Sure.
I'm very ignorant about it still. So that's kind of what the process looks like. If there's a foster family, I know that there's been a huge rise in infertility. And at least, from people that I've spoken to, and it's really becoming much more of a common issue, and then even statistically. And so I've been talking with other young couples that might be interested in becoming a foster family. One of the questions that they often ask, and maybe they just don't do the research, is their fear is that they'll become a foster family, have a child, be placed into their home, and that they'll raise them for a number of years, but that the parents can take them back. And their fear is, we'll raise this child as our own, obviously, but our fear is, that at some point in time, I've so bonded with this child that now we have to let them go. What is the time period, or I don't know, what's the response to that? What do I say to them?
Well, the good news is that there have been a lot of, in the state of Tennessee, there have been real efforts made to shorten that time period.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and steps put into place where parents, the goal always is, if possible, to reunite the child with the home. That's always number one.
100%.
If at all possible. One thing we've learned during our camp, that no matter what the child has been through, they still want to be home.
Yeah.
They still, there's something, but they have shortened the time, and it varies so much with the situation and the child, what that looks like.
Right.
So the parents will be given a plan. You got to do this, this, and this. Visitations take place. If the parent is following the plan, then there's a possibility of that child coming back home. But if the child is not the parent's not following the plan, then that time period gets shortened. So, but going into it, that's a question that could be asked with a particular child. Okay, what is their situation? What's going on with them and their family? So I would say find out up front. In some cases, the parental rights have already been terminated, so there is no issue there. And there's a family right now that I'm talking with that's just happened. In fact, yesterday, Tuesday, there was a meeting in which this boy, 13-year-old boy, court was meeting, and they were ending the parental rights because the mother still had rights, but she was not doing what she had to do, and so now they no longer exist. So now the goal is to find him a permanent home.
Yeah.
So yeah, every case is different. Yeah.
In that, now again, ignorant. I had always heard that it's much harder for a child in foster care that's in their teens, or maybe like 8 and above or 10 and above, that it's really, really difficult for them to find a home. And from the other end of it, I know I've spoken to other parents where they had said, my concern is I have other kids, and if they have traumatic experiences, I don't want, bring a 13-year-old into my home and they harm my 8-year-old or something like that. Give me some insight on that.
Yeah, and there's legitimate concerns. People do tend, and understandably so, to want younger children when they enter the system, especially if they're thinking about potential adoption down the way. Then yeah, because you have less baggage, less history. But there is something to the thinking. Older teens are harder to find homes for. But I know of a family now that actually at South Cleveland right now that they're in the process. I haven't talked to them the last month or so, but very close to bringing a couple of kids in their home with the idea of adoption, who are older kids who've been in the system a long time. And so they have a track record established, but the home they're in, for whatever reason, is not interested in adoption, but this family is, and they see these children have been successful, they've done well, and so perhaps they're in their home, whether transition is made. I haven't heard yet if that change has been made yet. So in that case, they feel fairly confident in bringing these children into their home because they've done well where they've been. So again, every case is different.
So there isn't like a blanket scenario.
No.
Maybe the best advice to parents that are interested is to speak to who would they speak to? Department of Child Services, or are there like third-party organizations, nonprofits? Who would somebody approach?
Yeah, Department of Children's Services ultimately will handle adoptions unless a child is placed with a private agency. But private agencies, those adoptions are extremely expensive.
Oh,
that's a whole different thing. So with children in DCS custody, then usually there's no cost involved to the family in the actual adoption process. But you have private families, private institutions that primarily are looking for homes for young children, and there's thousands and thousands of dollars in those situations. So yeah, it varies.
Being a foster parent is maybe the best track for adoption through Department of Children's Services?
Absolutely. That's the first step you go to is go through, and they have training. I think it's still a 10-week training because we went through that years ago. And so, yeah, you go through that basic training and start there. And it's a good way. And people sometimes start, this I think is wise. You can start as doing a, what's the term? Anyway, it's where basically you're standby, it's not the right word, but you do like weekend foster parenting.
Oh, okay.
So you've got kids who sometimes need a respite. That's what it's called, respite care. That's an easier way to get into it. Gives you a feel. You're not taking on full responsibility. How does this feel? Could this work with my family?
Hey, that makes a lot of sense.
I would recommend that as a possible first step.
Because it is a really big step to say, okay, we're going to take another child into our home and let's see what happens. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for the education, and I think that it's going to be educating our listeners as well, which is the first step towards good decisions. Private institutions, is this like orphanages or like children's homes, things like that?
It'd be more like it'd be more like agencies that work with parents who have, for whatever reason, want to give up their children for adoption at birth.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and so many times that's where that scenario comes into play.
Wow.
So there hasn't been an abuse or non-neglect situation. It's for whatever reason. Maybe it's an unwed mother. So you got an agency that's providing care to that unwed mother. I don't want to. I can't take a child in. There's no one in the family who wants to take them in. And so many times that's the case.
I didn't know that was a whole thing.
Yeah.
And then the institution, and then those institutions, I mean, it's going to sound horrible. What is the cost to go through an institution like that?
I know it's thousands of dollars. I know one is called Bethany. Is one of what comes to my mind is one group that does that. I think they're all over, I believe.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So they're a national organization.
That's wild. I had no idea.
Yeah. So it's a very different animal than working with DCS. Yeah.
So these children that get placed in foster care homes, they're in these homes. The hope is that they'll, be there temporarily, reunited with their family.
That's the first goal.
Yeah, that the parents get back on their feet, be rehabilitated. If they're on some sort of substance, that they would get off of it and find, a job and success and all of that. Yeah. That's great. If that isn't the case, then that they would remain in a healthy, stable home, and then eventually that would transfer from foster towards adoption.
Yeah, that's the ultimate goal for most of the children. So so they primarily will look for foster parents that are willing to adopt. And some foster parents are situations, whatever, they don't do that, and so they will see them more as many times a shorter term foster home, and maybe they'll take in other children once these children moved on to a possible adoptive placement. That does happen as well. Yeah.
So it becomes kind of like an extended Isaiah home, essentially, where, hey, you'll be here until we can find a better positioning, but it's better than being in the system.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. So then these children, when they're in the foster care program or children's homes or things like that, once a year, they come to this kids camp.
Yep. So
tell me about kids camp. Tell me about Royal Family Kids Camp.
Yeah. So we have We have a couple in our church that there are called, our title for the camp, are child placement coordinators, Bam and Doug Silver. And so their job, and it'll begin soon, is to recruit children for camp that summer. So they go to DCS, Cleveland DCS, Chattanooga. Also, we work with Tennessee Baptist Children's Home in Chattanooga. So we have children that will come to camp from that agency as well. Then we have some other private special needs type agencies, Omnicare, Camelot Care, etc. And so Chambliss Shelter, so various places that are contacted. Kids who came last year, adoptive parents, and so those contacts begin to be made, invitation given for the kids to come to camp. So there's an application process that is turned in, and that's how that ball gets rolling.
What age range?
Summer camp, 7 to 11.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. Then we do a fall retreat for middle school kids, and that's a weekend retreat that we do. And so by definition, middle school, 12 to 14. Then we've developed out of there some mentoring programs. We've got some kids who age out of that program, but we'll have this year we had 7 kids, I think, who are now high school age. And so they help work at the middle school camp. And then we started, this will be later in February, we've got a Saturday event for high school kids that we've been connected with over the years, just a one-day event. We kind of reconnect, do some fun things with them, devotional time, et cetera. So we still love you. We still care about you. So
that's awesome.
A few kids will come to that event in February as well. So it's grown as the years have gone by, is what it looks like. But the core event is the summer camp. And some of the things that, when people hear summer camp, you have certain ideas that come to mind. And so Well Family is like other summer camps, and it's not like other summer camps. So activities are similar. You have swimming, you have horses, we have archery, arts and crafts, music, etc. The uniqueness of Royal Family, number one, is the worker to child ratio. So in a cabin, you're going to have typically 8 children and 4, we call them cousins or counselors, and they will. So it's 2 to 1. So every cousin is assigned to 2 children.
Wow, 2 to 1 ratio.
2 to 1 ratio. And then by the time you add your staff, it's about a 1 to 1 ratio. Your staff aren't in the cabins. And so that gives the children that special attention and care that many times these kids particularly need. You get to know them better. You build relationships with them. And that's the real power of Royal Family is that. And then the training that we do, we go through all the workers that are required to do. If it's a first-time worker, 12 hours of training, returning worker, 8 hours of training, and how these kids' needs, how to work with these children.
Because they're going to have unique needs. Unique needs, yeah.
Kids are kids, but again, kids have been through trauma. You got special needs, and you got various levels of trauma. So how do you work with traumatized kids? How do you deal with certain behavior issues? Those are things you got to prepare yourself for as much as you can. And it's a lot of fun for the most part. But it's also very draining and very demanding.
Right.
Because someone's going to have that child. It's going to be the real challenge of the week, or those children that are just particularly needy at that point in their journey. And we just prepare, that you may be the lucky one this time. But you just come. We love. You've got a team of support. We're here. We're working together. No superheroes in this thing. And prayer support. So we solicit prayer partners. Had a person at church 2 weeks ago come up to me and said, "Hey, Lance," said, "I had these 2 girls. They came to camp last summer. I was their prayer partner. How are they doing? What's going on with them?" I said, "Well, I haven't had any communication, but I'll find out." And I have found out. They've gone back to their mom, and their caseworker tells them they're doing well. So when I see this gentleman again, probably Sunday, I'm going to tell him, "Hey, good news. Girls are doing well. They're back with mom." Great. But the key is, he said, "Well, I pray for them all year long."
That's awesome.
Even if I don't know their needs, I pray in the Spirit for them. So the Lord knows what they need.
That's right. And
so that's the other core key of Royal Family is prayer partners who do understand. And we've got a pastor who has the heart and the vision for this and puts in front of the church. Here's the incredible part. It's expensive to do a Royal Family Kids camp.
Right.
You're running a camp, you're feeding them, you're providing them with music players to go home with, camp music, camp T-shirts, crafts they've made, woodworking projects they've made, photo albums they've gotten, because a lot of these kids don't have family photo albums. They can go home with camp from photo albums.
Oh, wow.
And just a lot of, it's a huge investment. Of course, Bibles and so on. Since Pastor Lipsy's been at South Cleveland 10 years, we've not done a single fundraiser outside of a Sunday morning church service where we present the need to the church.
Praise God.
And people just pledge and they give and they become partners. And I get emotional thinking about that, about the support and the love
tremendous,
that's there. And we just,
yeah,
it's a whole church. It's a whole church thing. Whatever, even if you never physically go to camp, you got the givers, you got the financial supporters.
Yeah.
And it makes a difference. I was so excited yesterday. I got an email from a caseworker preparing for this teen event, and she sent me an application. We got a 17-year-old girl coming we hadn't seen in 4 years. She signed up to come, and that's
so she's coming as a cousin now.
No, she is coming to our teen event in February.
Oh, okay.
But we do have 2 girls coming as cousins this year who grew up at camp.
That's wild.
We had 1 last year. And we have 2 this year.
That's wonderful.
And that's phenomenal. Yeah.
No, that's absolutely precious
when that happens. So yeah, we got an email. The couple who do our child placement got an email from a foster parent this week, and just talking about the impact of Royal Family on the girl. She's adopted 3 children now.
Wow!
And all their children have been to camp and been to retreat, and just talking about her expressing her thanks and what a difference camp has made for her kids. So, yeah.
Wow. No, I know, being a youth pastor for a number of years, how much young people and especially children look forward to camp all year long.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And this is these are children that are not in trauma. These are children that are in good, healthy homes, and they're happy for the most part, and they look forward to camp all
I was
year.
the same way growing up. I love going to camp.
Yeah, same. I can't imagine how much these kids in foster care look forward to camp. I can't imagine. To me, camp was like the height of what I could hope for. As a youth, I can't imagine something being that much more valuable just because of your context. I mean, what a tremendous ministry. And, as a youth pastor, it's like, man, there's been so many camp experiences that were the catalyst for life-change moments in so many young people's lives. I can't imagine how much more you probably experience that at Royal Family Kids Camp every year.
Yeah. And one of the unique things, too, is because we're dealing with kids who are in state custody, there's certain guidelines we have to follow.
Okay.
Now, being in the South, it's not like California.
Right.
We don't have the limitations you would have there.
Nowhere's like California.
Nowhere's like California.
Maybe communist Romania, but anyway.
So we don't, for instance, we don't give altar calls at camp. And it's because you always got to think, how would that play back home? And so, we're part of a ministry with 200 camps. And so basically we had to follow their general guidelines. So there's a few things like that. That's what we learned. It does not hinder the Holy Spirit's ministry.
Yeah.
But if the children ask questions, if they ask questions, we can answer any question they have. And we have times of prayer, but it's not come forward to an altar call. It's our group's going to get right here. We're going to get in a circle. If you want to share something, you want to help the leaders want to pray about, then you can do that. So
that's awesome.
You just do different approach, different ways, but
different method.
Not being coercive in a state's eye. And so there's just a few things like that. They're a little bit different, but it doesn't.
Yeah, God's hand isn't shortened just because we don't use specific methods. I think that's so beautiful to see it play out within the, sometimes the structure that we're having to modify or, to have wisdom with, but just to see how God is so adaptive, obviously. Like, we know, obviously, God's adaptive, but to just see how adaptive the Holy Spirit is, and then to see the results and think, oh, God, your hand was never shortened all along. No, that's so beautiful. That's wonderful. Yeah, Royal Family Kids Camp. No, what a tremendous ministry. I know Peter would come back, and he would, every single year, he would call me when I was back in California, and he would call me, and he'd be like, man, you just tell me all these different stories. Man, you got to come see this thing, and you got to meet Pastor Lance, and you got to see, the different stories of these kids and stuff, and the joy in Maria's eyes whenever she comes back home, her and Felicia. Every time they go to Royal Family Kids Camp, they come back home, and Maria will come over, and they'll debrief with me. They'll tell me, we did this.
Yeah, it's a debrief. It's part of it. You got to debrief.
You got to
big part of camp.
Yeah, and they love sharing, like, all of the stories and the testimonies, and it's always so encouraging, for Simida and I, my wife and I, and and the rest of our team here. So no, it's beautiful, beautiful
Well,
camp.
and what's happened too, see, it shapes staff lives.
Hmm.
We've had people that have changed careers because of coming to camp.
Wow.
People who have become counselors because they came to camp. People who have become school teachers because they came to camp. People who have adopted because they came to camp. So, yeah, we've had life change through the years through people who've come and volunteered.
You know,
I'm sure many I don't even know.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah. One more of them is Maria.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maria was not sure exactly what direction to go in, but after camp and after her experiences, it's like how we started the conversation, where you're like, yes and no. It's and in that same way, I know that Maria's journey has been very much yes and no, where it's not like, God gives you marching orders and here's your calling in life. It just kind of gets developed over time. And so as she's kind of just been going through this journey, I know that Royal Family Kids Camp and other places where she serves at the Isaiah 117 house have really shaped her calling in life. And now she's in college becoming a counselor. Yeah, it's tremendous.
Yeah.
Tremendous. What are some of the difficulties that you have at camp? Because I assume that you're going to have, I've run camps for a number of years, but I'm assuming that your difficulties at camp would be maybe more unique than mine or more specific.
I think always the one potential you have when you have 50 adults, getting the right mix in cabins of leaders, trying not to have personality clashes there. And that has happened from time to time. And people swallow it and work through it.
Right.
But that's a key. And we try to train and build the right teams, right combinations. And so that's something that we always have to be aware of, and have done better and better of that over the years. Helping people who, it's part of our interview process, people who have experienced trauma, okay, are they ready to go to camp? Is this going to be a negative experience for them and thus for the kids because of the trauma they've experienced?
A camper or
no, a worker.
Oh, a worker. Okay.
A worker.
Yeah.
So that's something we have to prepare for and try to help them prepare for. Is this person ready or are they not?
Because you get all sorts of people that apply, I assume.
Yes. And so that's I'd say number one, just working with the staff. Last summer, it was one of the most peaceful. Anyone you asked went, calm, teamwork. It was just beautiful. And just sometimes just the unexpected behavior you might have with a child. I'll give you an example from a couple years ago, and trying to think, it was in the cabin that Dominica was in. I know, wasn't her camper, but we had a young lady, a girl who came in, and she's in a home now. Unfortunately, some children wind up in homes that has a very bad influence. So it's a home where witchcraft is practiced.
Oh, wow.
And so she began to ask me, this camper did one day, just at the archery range. I was just there hanging out. And she asked me, she said, "Are you a medium?" I thought she meant my size at first. I really did.
Sorry to laugh.
I said, yeah. Then I realized just what she means.
Oh, wow.
And boy, we had some serious, and realized what she's living with at home, and she's been adopted into this home.
Wow! So she wasn't there temporarily. She was
adopted.
Because this is through the State Department of Child Services.
And so they're not looking at what religion you are.
Right?
Can they provide a home for these children, a safe place for the children? And so we had a time where I met with their cabin and their cabin leaders, and we just talked about things. As I opened up, showed a couple of stories from Acts from Paul, where he interacted with people that had,
like Simon.
Yeah, Simon, et cetera, and the girl who was possessed in Ephesus.
Right.
That story. We looked at that and talked about that, and just broke down. Here's what. There is power there, but understand where's that power, and here's what the Bible says about it. Now you walk a fine line. We're not condemning her mother, her adopted mother, but we're just saying here's what the Scripture says, and here's the danger of it. So things like that, of course, that could happen at any camp. I give the child that's coming from a non-Christian home, but still, just not knowing what to expect, and kids who have been traumatized. Certain behaviors, sometimes it will always have some children who either want to overeat because They've been hungry at times. They may want to take food back to the cabin. Are we going to have another meal? Is this the only meal we're having today? Know what time is lunch? Or this other end of it, they don't hardly eat anything.
Why?
Because of it's just something psychologically, just from some of what their experience that they've had, just some eating disorder that's developed from their experience. So
In children?
In children. So we've had issues around food. Has been fairly common. There's always at least some. You're going to have more bedwetters than a typical camp because of some of the trauma that some of these kids have been through. And for the most part, we're informed of that information on our application. We at least prepared when that happens. So a lot more medication than you're going to have at a traditional camp.
Yeah.
So my wife's a camp nurse will have, typically half the children will be in some kind of medication. So that's different. Just special needs of the children. Yeah.
So that leads me into this question. One of the fears that people have with children's ministry is that it'll be too painful to serve in that area.
Sure.
Right. And I mean, just hearing some of the examples that you're talking about, how does somebody deal with, the fear that it might be too painful, or, should that fear hold people back from getting involved in children's ministry? You know what I mean?
Yes.
I'd love to shed some light on that, because I feel like it's so easy for people to be like, well, I'm afraid, I don't know how it's going to be, so I'm just going to write it off.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think that's the right approach.
Yeah. I could take you to a person right now that lives not far from here. Wonderful people. Try to get her to come to camp. She says, no, I would just get too close to the children. It would break my heart when I had to leave. Well, we've talked, but never made progress in it. Well, the children's heart are broken. Maybe it's good to have someone come let them see your heart is broken over them,
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, it is a real thing that some years your heart will be broken.
Yeah.
Other years, you're going to have fun. Your kids are going to have fun. It's going to be easy. You just never know. You never know what it's going to be like in your cabin and with your kids. Some of your kids are going to be doing great. Some are going to be not. So you have to be willing to realize, to be vulnerable, but realize God can do a healing work through your pain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's very, very true.
So you can't paint a false picture. We tend in our training, people come the first year, we paint worst case scenarios. And almost every time they'll say, well, that wasn't bad. But we just we know what could happen.
Right.
But try to prepare for the worst in case.
Yeah.
In case it were to happen.
No, that's a lot of wisdom in that.
Yeah. So we've learned a lot over the years. And because we've done camp a long time, we get surprised by things that happen. But we've done it enough that at least you learn certain minefields, certain pitfalls that you can kind of help navigate around a little easier than we could in the early days.
So how do you serve as long as you've served, for example? Royal Family Kids Camp, 28 years.
A great team, number one. You got to have a great team, people that take responsibility, that do their roles. We have a lot of people that have served, 20 plus, 15 plus. That's the most important thing. So I don't have to worry about this person's going to handle the crafts, this person's going to handle the music, they're going to handle the drama, they're going to handle this, they're going to do that. And so that's the key, is a team.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It doesn't work without that.
How do you serve for that length of time and still are able to have sensitivity towards the children without falling into one extreme where you're so sensitive that it's crushing you every single time, but not into the opposite extreme? Because that's the other side that I wonder about. How do you not get calloused?
Yeah. Well, I guess because every child has a story. Every child's an individual. And I think if you take it that way, every child's story is important. I think you come at it like that helps. And my wife realizes when I come home from camp, and the first few days are going to be kind of ugly. First 2 or 3 days after camp, it's going to be emotional. You got to have to work through it.
Yeah.
But hey, that's it's easier than it was.
Yeah.
In the beginning, easier to work through it. I mean, in our first couple of years, we all came home just basket cases.
Yeah.
Because we were exposed to a world we didn't really fully understand.
Right.
And so it is harder the first couple of times that you do it.
Yeah.
Because you're just it's a mission trip. That's what it's a mission trip.
Yeah.
It really is.
100%.
Yeah. And so understand this is what it is. And And I just say just the key, because we have a team and because people praying, that's what keeps the sensitivity and the freshness alive.
Yeah.
When you have other people who've been doing it as long as the same amount of time or close, and they are still passionate about it, we all help each other. And then I've got our kids pastor at South Cleveland, Chris. Chris is phenomenal. So Chris went through, he's gone through director's training. So I have someone that when the time comes, I've got someone that's trained. And so when I get to here, I say, okay, I need to back off. Maybe I'll be involved in a different role. I don't know, but camp can still keep going because I've got someone trained to take my place. And so that's a relief, knowing that that's there, because, what have you accomplished if when you step aside, it doesn't continue?
Yeah. No, 100%. Yeah. The work shouldn't die with us.
No.
Yeah.
So that's not what it's about. So building a team. So we have generational. In fact, what we've done. So we'll probably get iced out of church this Sunday the way it looks, may or may not. This Sunday is supposed to be our annual kickoff service where we promote the camp, raise funds, etc.
That's right. That's this Sunday.
This Sunday. If the weather's bad, it'll be the next Sunday.
Right.
But with that, I lost my train of thought. Where was I going with that?
With Christian
generational is where I was. So what we did this year is we've got a lot of people. That's a number of young people whose parents, and even in the case of grandparents, served at camp. So I didn't do them, but we had someone did it for us. We did interviews of these younger people that are now volunteers, and in their stories, they're telling how they were influenced to get started in camp. So we play in those videos on Sunday morning, those stories.
That's going to make such an impact in the congregation.
Yeah,
that's
I think
beautiful.
So. Yes, yeah. And how it's the generation. So that's another key part of it, is how it's been passed on generation to generation.
Yeah.
And so my daughters, when they were living here, both worked several years in camp. One's in St. Louis. My other daughter passed away a couple of years ago.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. And but they were involved with it, very much so in different capacities.
It's beautiful.
So, yeah, it is. It is. And that's a huge part of it. So it's a family in that realm as way, Yeah.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. One of the things that I think about when I was in the Republic of Moldova, because it's hard. It's hard being around orphans and especially leaving the last day. It sucks. Like, is the best way I can describe it. It's hard, because with us, what it was we realized that, okay, I'm going to leave and I get to go back to my house.
Right. Exactly.
And there's just such a guilt that comes along with that,
exactly.
Where it's like I get to go back to my home. And this was a hard experience for me. This was probably, for me when we were there on mission, it was the hardest experience of my year. And then realizing this is the best experience of their year.
That's great. That's a perspective. Yeah.
That's such a hard thing to see, and it's been 22 years. And I still find myself thinking about this little girl named Christina and this young man that I was really mentoring. His name was Sasha. And I just wonder what they're up to.
Sure.
And what ended up happening was just a couple of years ago, maybe 5-6 years ago, I had a bunch of photos from our mission trips. And I was actually aggregating photos from everybody's cameras. And so I just posted online like 1,500 photos. Like I just, album after album after album. And then naturally people just started tagging each other. And then people started tagging a lot of the young people a lot of the kids that were orphans that I had wondered about for, coming up on 2 decades.
Man.
And I was just going through them all over the place. And, some, maybe weren't doing as well, but so many of them were getting baptized or had gotten baptized. And it was such a rejoicing moment in many of our lives. People were like, man, did you remember that one kid? And I will say this, I wouldn't trade that. I would never go back and undo that. I mean,
no.
I know it was difficult, but there's such a powerful and extremely impactful transformation that happened in my life because of it. And it's given me a lot more depth and care for those that are suffering, because for me, okay, it's a week, but I get to go back to my life. But for those kids, it was something that powerful and poignant. And so, no, I would encourage people to definitely come alongside. Last question, Pastor Lance.
Sure.
Thanks for being with me for so long, by the way.
Thank you.
How, if people want to help, if they want to come alongside, what can you use help with?
Yeah. Well, it's year to year in terms of our summer camp. And we're usually pretty well staffed, but you never really know
Right.
because sometimes life happens with people.
Right.
And so we're always willing and happy to talk with people that may have an interest in getting involved in camps. There are people who do things for us that don't physically come to camp. Others that do. For instance, this has happened before, but I was asked this week, do you want us to make quilts for the kids again this year? Absolutely. So we got a lady that that's a huge project, making 50 to 60 quilts for all the
big
kids.
Project. What
And
a wonderful way to serve.
Yeah. And so kindnesses like that go above and beyond. And again, sometimes we have openings as well for volunteers. Last year we wound up with a couple of last-minute situations with ladies, and we kind of struggled, and God helped us to find the help that we need. So, yeah, I would always be interested in someone that may potentially want to consider volunteering, giving, praying, offering something, for the kids. Yeah.
Wonderful. Where can somebody get a hold of you to talk about camp?
Yeah. The easiest way would just be I can give an email.
Okay.
I would just do that.
Yeah, well, we can put that in the caption if that's all right, or they
Sure.
can reach out to us and we can get them in contact with you.
That's fine. Either way is
Absolutely
good.
possible.
Okay.
Yeah, and then for people that might be located obviously outside of the Cleveland area, anywhere else in the U.S., there's how many Royal Family Kids camps that happen each year?
There are about 200. I haven't seen the current year for this year.
Tremendous.
The number for this year, but we have right now in Tennessee. We have 3 in Tennessee because it started in Southern California.
Right.
It's strongest out west. But they're
Which is
all
so
over.
the opposite of most church ministries.
Yeah.
They're normally really strong in the Bible
Isn't
Belt
that funny? Yeah.
and very scarce out in California.
I've never thought of it that way, but you're exactly right. Yeah.
So as a minister in California, that's the way that I see it all the time.
There you go.
Because it was always so hard to find venues and people to partner with. And
Yeah.
No, that's wild. But no, that's really good to know.
Yeah. So it is. Yeah. So there are, and people could go to, the umbrella title now that they use is For the Children, forthechildren.org, because it's more than just a summer camp. There's a mentoring program, et cetera.
Wonderful.
So if you go to For the Children on the website, you will find information about Royal Family Kids Camp and all they do in the various places that camps exist as well. And
And if you are a local in town and you want to find out more in person, South Cleveland Church of God this Sunday, unless we're all iced out because of the storm, then it would be the following Sunday.
that's right. That's correct.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining me in studio and for sharing your story and for sharing the ministry.
Oh, it's my privilege. I love it. Happy for what you're doing, man.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And for all of our listeners, thanks for tuning in with us, and we'll see you next week. Thanks, and God bless.